Welcome to the Dark Zone, an adventure racing podcast.
I think one of the things that's most rewarding for people is when they're on that journey of self-improvement, when you set a goal and you work slowly towards it and you actually feel yourself progressing. And that's a great way to live life. It's so inspiring when you get up in the morning and go, I'm achieving a lot. I'm reinventing myself all the time. And each day I wake up, I'm a better person than I was the day before.
Well, for me, the action is the juice. I'm in.
I need you, brother. Please, Sensei, please.
Courage, Bob. Courage.
That's it. Courage. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Hey, thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Sensei. Thank you.
Say the word, Chef.
Let it rip.
Welcome back to the Dark Zone, episode number 163. Listeners will remember that we have given the keys over to Rootstock Racing for their Endless Mountains podcast. You're going to hear some Dark Zone content that's original, along with Rootstock Racing content will be interspersed over the next several weeks. We love what Rootstock has done with their podcast and their race, and we're delighted to give them the platform. And while they're working on the finishing touches of their next episodes, we will keep bringing you original content. And speaking of original content, today we bring you Nathan Fave. Listeners will remember Nathan as Dark Zone guest number 50. And here we are 100 plus episodes later, and Nathan is back to talk about his post-adventure racing life, how he has transitioned into different types of racing, kind of like the Yukon 1000, which he talks a lot about, and how he's using that to raise money for charity. So we're delighted to have you here. Nathan is always a great listen, always fun to talk to him, a real bright spot in the sport, and we are grateful for his time. So sit back and relax and enjoy this episode of The Dark Zone. All right, Nathan, here we go. So last week I raced the Endless Mountains 5-day adventure race. My teammate, Pete Spagnoli, tells a story about you.
Really?
He tells it all the time. And you may recall this story. So Pete is hard to forget. He's a Long Island guy, got that New York City accent, and he's out in the island. And he tells a story about how he was at the World Championship. It was like 3 minutes to the start. And he couldn't get his watch from feet to meters. And he was standing next to you.
Okay, yes.
He was standing next to you.
Yeah. Yes.
He said he turned to you. This is the World Championship. You're a leading team to win. I think you won it that year. You did win it 7 times. And you cool as a cucumber, took the watch, fixed it, feet to meters, handed it back to him, and the race started. Do you remember that story?
Yes, I do. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, I remember it because he's kind of reminded me occasionally. So,
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, no, it's cool.
It's nice for you to know that here we are so many years later still talking about you, right? Still on the race course. Your name still comes up. Thanks for coming on the Dark Zone. It's always good to see you. Always good to have you on the show.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, no, thank you. How did your race go?
It went well.
Endless Mountains.
It went well. Yeah, we went for the team went, 120-hour race. We finished at about 119 hours.
Wow.
At center. 38 teams started the race. We were 19th out of 38. We did really well. Really, really well. Yeah, it was a good race. It was good. It was, Rootstock Racing puts on great races, hard races. A lot of terrain, there was a 30-mile paddle in there. There was over 50-mile bike, a lot of mountain biking, a tough finish down, and it rained. It was a lot of rain up in the area. So a lot of the places that weren't wet had become wet, but a great race.
Yeah, right.
Great race.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And now
you're in that nice post-race kind of recovery. treat phase.
Yeah, eat as much as I want, sleep as much as I want.
Yeah, good one.
So it was great, but thank you for your message beforehand. It was a ton of fun, and we were talking about on the race. We were chatting about you and how you were coming on the show, and when I was talking to people, they wanted me to get across to you how grateful they were for all of your work over the years in the sport. The leadership you showed, the work with Avaya, the work with Seagate, and all that you did over those years. They wanted me to pass that along to you, and to also to catch up with you a bit. But how's it going since you decided to retire from the sport? Because you've retired from the sport, but you haven't retired from racing. You're still going.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, well, thank you for people to sort of make those acknowledgements. I mean, I guess, yeah, I feel like I have tried to make an effort to contribute to the sport. To be honest, with the Seagate and Avaya sort of period, I mean, that was quite selfish racing, really. That was us just getting out and doing what we were really passionate about and chasing those big races and being part of that kind of period of adventure racing, which I feel really grateful for. Yeah, I feel like we timed that to perfection in terms of opportunities in the sport and, you know, the buzz and excitement around it and things like that. So, yeah, that was some great memories from that period. But certainly in terms of what we're doing here in New Zealand with developing the sport at a youth level and with our company, especially with women's adventure racing and just doing our little bit, I guess, to kind of carry the torch. Yeah, it is nice to be and humbled to be sort of acknowledged and appreciated in that way. So yeah, thank you for those people that made those comments. Yes. So I have retired from adventure racing, but yes, I'm still racing, and I think that was one of the reasons why I did step back from, you know, I guess the traditional adventure racing as we know it. Was opportunity to go and do a few other things that I really wanted to do. And I've always been intrigued of the world of, I guess, ultra endurance paddling. So that's been a bit of a focus. We did, obviously Sophie and I went to the Yukon 1000 in 2024 and we're back for that again very soon. We'll be on the river in about 10 days or maybe less now. So yeah, I've sort of been keeping active and doing things, and it's been life's good.
Yeah, when you and I spoke, you were Dark Zone guest number 50, over 100 episodes ago, and I remember we had that conversation. You talked about how you had reached a point in your racing in your career where the training was less important because you had put so much base, you had so much speed in you already, and so much movement in you already, and you were beginning to use that base to branch out into other things. And even when you shared that, even when you talked about that during that interview, you could tell that you do what a lot of adventure racers do, which is you build a skill set over time, right? And then after building that skill set over time, you begin to apply it in different places. And not only, it's funny how you describe the racing, with Avaya and Seagate as selfish, or I put that in quotes for the listener, but that's you doing something for yourself and your teammates, but you've used that base to branch out into all the other things that you're now involved in. And then your family too, if I understand correctly, is deeply involved in endurance sports and in racing. Tell us a bit about how your work has blossomed out into those other directions.
It probably stems back, my wife Jodie and I, our careers have been in outdoor education. We're outdoor educators. That's my qualifications. I'm actually an outdoor instructor. Mm-hmm. And so is my wife Jodie. So we've worked a lot in the adventure tourism industry here in New Zealand, and also as outdoor educators, mainly as outdoor educators. So taking youth, school groups, corporate groups, just normal people on outdoor experiences for all the proven benefits that there are for people, challenge themselves in the outdoors, connecting with nature. Learning a bit about, hardship and dealing with that, and, looking at how people, I guess, contribute to a team, how they deal with risk, how they deal with challenge, adversity, all those things. And so ultimately, my pathway in many ways has been to promote and encourage people to be active in the outdoors. And how they do that, it doesn't really worry me, whether that's through adventure racing, sea kayaking, hiking, whether it be recreational, whether it be racing, whatever it is. To me, it's just getting more people more active more often. And I think there's a lot of things that are probably underestimated about what the outdoors can offer, and especially in terms of mental health, I think. And, there's a bit of a mental health pandemic, I think, happening in the Western world. Mm-hmm. And, there's obvious physical benefits. If you go and walk up a hill, most people are going to figure out, that's going to be good for my body physically. But I think it is a little bit underestimated how important that is for your mental health as well. And then I think that also links to spiritual health, whatever spiritual path people take or adopt. But I think there's a real strong connection with a human being in the outdoors, because ultimately we're an outdoor creature. Right. We're not designed to be inside. And, so I think, what we've done with our events company here in New Zealand and a lot of my events racing, in the back of my mind, I've always just hoped that what we're doing, well, it is just us getting out there and racing hard and doing our thing, that it actually inspires other people to go, well, I don't really want to go and race for 6 days through the Pantanal in Brazil, but I would like to have a little bit more adventure in my life.
Right.
And maybe this weekend I'll go for a short trip or do something that's a bit out of my comfort zone. So I guess that's sort of been the theme and sort of vehicle of Jodie and I's pathway. And we're not alone. I mean, there's heaps of other people on the same sort of mission. And that's just naturally filtered down through our family. So I've got 3 teenage, well, actually, no, they're more than teenagers now. They're 3 adult children. And we've just raised them, with our philosophies, but mostly we've raised them because that's been our skill set. What Jodie and I can do well is take people and give them a really awesome outdoor experience. And our kids have had lots of those. And they continue to have them.
I think New Zealand as a country has really nailed that in many ways, right? The New Zealand is the epicenter of adventure racing. God Zone is an epic, massive race that is spoken of with such reverence, right? And the work that's done down there. And I think from the outside looking in, from America and the East Coast and from New York City and New Jersey, right, looking in, it sounds like New Zealand in many ways has hit the nail on the head when it comes to expectations for how human beings should move and should act, right? And I agree with you 1,000% that the mental health crisis, which is well documented, right? Well documented, that there are probably multiple solutions to it, but one thing that won't exacerbate it is spending more time outside. Like nobody feels worse about themselves after a busy day outside. Nobody feels worse about themselves. It's the being on the couch. It's being sedentary. It's being caught in that cycle of thinking and not acting and not doing. And to your point, the outdoor education, which, like I said, New Zealand really nails, I think is a lot of lessons for the rest of the Western world, because there's so many things to keep children indoors, and, they just don't play outside enough.
Yeah, 100%. I will say that, it's nice that that's the perception of New Zealand, and I'd like that to be true. But no, we're not immune from the same things. There is, I think in the South Island, you would probably say that is mostly true, but in the North Island, it's quite different. And so New Zealand, while we're doing a lot of good things, we could do a lot better. So I certainly wouldn't want to hold our New Zealand flag up and say, we've nailed this. I think we're doing a good job, but I think we've got a lot of work to do still. And I agree with what you're saying. I think, my experience with working with people in the outdoors is a common thing, a very, very common thing people will say after whatever experience I've had is that was great. I should do this more often. And I think that's the thing, is just helping people find that sort of motivation and purpose, and knowing that it's worth investing that time, that you won't regret it. It's important for your health, and to go on from there. I heard a crazy statistic recently that the group of people that consistently spend the most time outdoors are prison inmates.
Right, because they're outside. They're using shovels. They get holes.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy to think that there's people who are in the free world that spend less time outside than a prisoner. So essentially, in many ways, the way I saw that is that people are self-imprisoning themselves. They basically got the freedom to go and do all these amazing things, but instead they're choosing to spend their time indoors on devices, in cars, in work, in shopping malls.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine. He's a huge outdoor person. He says that your couch is trying to kill you. Right, sitting on your couch. And that doesn't mean you can't rest. I think it's a fair point to make, right? And I think you would agree with that.
Totally.
It can't be go. Like I just had this big 5-day race. I'm thoroughly enjoying doing nothing for a week to 10 days, right? I'm enjoying that.
Yeah.
But to your point, you pass, there's this line you jump over where if you're not careful, you move towards sedentary lifestyle. And we both know that, and you're an outdoor educator. You see people try to reverse that. It becomes an ugly cycle. Less movement leads to less movement. And if you can't break out of it, it gets harder and harder and harder. You see it with chronic obesity, with weight gain, people, their back, their hips, and all of that. And I think that the message is loud and clear that we want people to be out and about, right? It's good for us. And adventure racing is an extreme performance, right? Spending 120 hours on a trail, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days is pretty extreme. but trying to get outside every day for a chunk of time is essential for everybody.
Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't need to be much. I mean, I think, obviously adventure racers are one end of a continuum, like they're seeking really hard experiences and getting out there and really pushing themselves to the whole really high levels, really. But that's not what most people need to do. It's just a little bit each day. Yeah, it doesn't need to be much, but it's just that little bit of continuous. So, so that's kind of what I'm up to, I guess. So we're kind of just living our life, but we're running our events company here in New Zealand. So we have a few adventure races that we organise and then work on another couple of events and then just kind of really just try and find as much time for adventures and having fun.
Well, that's the trick, right? The trick is to balance that out, right? You have to feed the beast, right? You got to pay your bills, but you still have to go do all those other things too, and that's where the real challenge is. How did you manage personally? A lot of people, and even myself, I can relate to this. You lived at a really high level inside the adventure racing community, right? People know you, they speak of you still. How did you manage that transition from being the Nathan and Fave of the winning the championships, stepping away from the sport, and what that was like for you as a person? How easily or how hard was that for you?
As you know, I have tried to step away from adventure racing a number of times, and most of them were unsuccessful. Except this one, I think, is quite different, and I think the reason is mainly age. I think I tried to retire from adventure racing because the first time was actually back in 2005. And I largely felt then that I had some great years of racing. I had been racing since a teenager, and I was a competitive mountain bike racer before I went into adventure racing. And it just sort of felt like I didn't want my whole life to be just about racing. So I tried to step away from it, but I really struggled with that. And same with, I guess, the other times I tried to retire from adventure racing, and I kind of missed too many aspects of it. But then I was just like, oh, well, that's what I really want to be doing. So I'll just go back and keep doing it. So when I sort of stepped back more recently, just a couple of years ago, I think it was in 2023 officially, or when I sort of decided that's enough, I think the difference then is that, I was in my 50s and I didn't feel like there was anything more I wanted to do in adventure racing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And there's other things I wanted to do. And the reality is that, when you're in your 50s, it's like 60s kind of the next big nut. Yeah, that's right. So, so I think I was just like, right, I could almost say that my 30s, 40s and 50s were actually themed around adventure racing, or 30s and 40s, I should say.
Mm.
And so I just sort of felt like my 50s, I wanted them to be sort of remembered for some other things, and just to make that time. So to answer your question, no, it's been fine. And that was just good timing, and for lots of reasons.
It sounds like it was really good for you because, like when you get in your 50s, you and I are both in our 50s. Recovery gets longer, injuries hang around longer. You don't bounce back so quickly, and there's a point of diminishing returns where you just stick in there too long, and eventually it gets chronic and it gets hard, and it's no longer fun, right? And so therefore, it sounds like you nailed the fun part, but it wasn't like you put the full brakes on, right? You expanded to the race directing. Your 3 kids got involved, and now you're involved in Yukon 1000. So it sounds like you've transferred your attitude into a different direction.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's right. So I think, often when people retire, this is one thing I've noticed, when you do that, but there seems to be this kind of perception with some people that you're going to be just like we were saying before, you're just going to sit on the couch and, start playing golf and things. I mean, I actually do play golf, but yeah, for me, it wasn't that at all. It was that, there's other things I just want to do. And I just felt like adventure racing was taking up a certain amount of my time. And I was actually starting to become almost a little bit resentful because I felt like I've got a adventure race coming up. I need to do sort of this sort of training in order to get ready for the race. Mm-hmm. And there's actually not really the training I'd like to be doing. I want to be doing, I'd rather be going on this trip, or I'd rather be doing this. Yeah. I'd like to be doing more paddling, but I actually need to work on my running or whatever it might be. And so, there's all those things that came into it. I was like, look, I've done plenty of adventure racing, and now is the time for me to. I just want to do some other things, and the timing just felt right. On saying that, I've been quite surprised because I have been really active since I stopped adventure racing. More active in some ways because my kids have all sort of left home now. So Jodie and my wife and I have actually got more free time now than we have for 20 or so years. I actually feel like I'm probably in some weird way almost stronger than when I was actually racing in more recent years. So I don't feel like it would be much for me to go and do an adventure race if that's what I wanted to do, somewhat ironically. And if there was a really big race that came up that was super interesting in a country that really appealed to me and it made sense kind of, I guess, from a prize money perspective, I would entertain doing another race, but it would just need a lot of stars to align.
Right. Yeah, a lot of things have to go. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I loved Endless Mountains. I love doing it, and the wear and tear is there. Is that the end of the 5-day racing for me? No, but the next 5-day race has to be really, really, really attractive, right? Yeah. I like how you get to talk about prize money. That's not in my world. That's in your world. For me, it's more about the travel. And, when I think back to our conversation 100 episodes ago, we talked about where you would love to have a race, and you identified like Asia. Like, you would love to go to, I don't think we mentioned Bhutan by name, but that part of the world, I remember you saying how that was attractive to you, that if you could pick a place to go race you haven't raced, it would have been there. And so who knows?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just sort of going to those other places. My kids have made some noise as well, not all of them, but a couple of them about doing a race at some point as a family team. There's some interest there. So I said to them, well, you better be quick.
That's pretty attractive.
If you want to do that.
That's a cool idea. Well, I mean, because they're all in their 20s now, right? And they're strong. And if I'm correct, and feel free to brag a little bit, your children are rather well accomplished to themselves as racers. They do very well.
Yeah, they do. They're very active. The two of them do a lot of orienteering.
Okay.
They do all sorts of things, but my son in particular is very good. Like, he's got a very, very high world ranking in orienteering, and my youngest daughter is at the Junior World Champs right now in Sweden. That's happening literally at the moment. So she's in the New Zealand team. That's her third year at the Junior World Champs. And my eldest daughter is actually training for the Coast to Coast right now. So they're 19, 21, and 23. So, so she's biking, paddling, and running, training for the Coast to Coast. So, they're into lots of different outdoor sports and have their goals and things they want to do.
I think the big thing to realize there, Nathan, is that if they were to race with you, they can carry your pack the entire race. Because they're in their 20s and they're give it all the way to them.
I actually suspect that's one of the reasons they want me in the team. Actually, I still carry a pretty decent pack.
Okay, they need you as the mule. They'll do all the orienteering. That's right. Their stuff. Now, the idea of you not packing it in, and to your point, and you mentioned you play golf. Golf is a fine activity, but you feel fitter now, right? The kids are out of the house. You're not clobbering your body with 7, 8, 9, 10-day races. You're feeling really good now, and yet you're using all that energy to get into the Yukon 1000. Now, tell the audience, because it's an adventure racing audience, so they may not know the Yukon 1000. What race is that?
So it's the longest pedal race in the world. And Sophie and I have talked about doing it for quite a few years as we were adventure racing, because in our team, how it generally worked is Chris and Stu would be doing the navigation. So they would often be just a little bit in front, just talking about maps and route choice and things. And often that left Sophie and I just a little bit at the back of the team. We sort of had this order that we would essentially race in, sort of navigators at the front, and I would generally be at the back, just with bike tools or various things. And it enabled me just to think more about strategy and just kind of what's going on in the team and various sort of things. But we also paddled in those combinations. So Chris and Stu would paddle together and Sophie and I would paddle together. And for Sophie, I think the kayak stages were one of the highlights of adventure racing, because it was a time when the whole team would sort of travel, at the same speed. And so it was really easy to stay together as a team. And the paddling times sort of became quite special, because you could just sort of paddle and chat, and it was easy to kind of eat and share food and drink and whatever it is. And so Sophie and I would often be a bit disappointed when the paddling stages came to an end. It's like, oh no, we're back on our feet. Here we go. And so we sort of always joke that wouldn't it be great to have an adventure race one day that was purely just paddling? You basically just paddle. And so we became aware of the Yukon 1000 and sort of thought, oh, at some point we should go and do that because, it's what we'd always talked about as a multi-day race that is just paddling. And so it was actually after the God Zone in 2023 where I had sort of said to the team, look, I know I've said this before, but I really think I'm done. That's probably me. And Sophie said, well, it must be time for the Yukon 1000 then. And I was like, yeah, it probably is.
Well, I think the story you tell, I think you were driving home from God Zone.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. You got a good memory. Great memory. So, yeah, we were. So we did it in 2024 and we actually thought that was sort of one and done, that we'd done the race and that was enough. We sort of ticked that box. But essentially it is a 1,000-mile kayaking race down the Yukon River, obviously. It starts in Whitehorse, Canada, and about more than half of the races in Canada. Then you cross into Alaska and then the rest of it's there. The rule with the races is that you have to get off the river for 6 hours a day, which essentially means if you want to be competitive, you've got to paddle for 18 hours a day. The river is quite fast moving. Most of the time you're sort of moving between about 15 and 20 kilometers per hour. I'm not quite sure that a mile, 10 to 13 miles, I guess, something like that. Mm-hmm. There is a lake on the first day that you cross, which is about 50 kilometers. But other than that, you're in the Yukon River. And there's a surprising amount of navigation in terms of the river's got a lot of braids in places. It's single channel, but there's places half the river is probably braided. So choosing the right channel is quite important. Like if you choose the wrong channel, you can lose a lot of time. Like you could lose hours if you took a wrong channel and ended up meandering.
There's no, it's all map and compass navigation. There's no electronic navigation.
No, you're allowed GPS.
Oh, you are?
Allowed
Okay.
to plot it. You're allowed to plot a GPS and use that, but we found that the GPS wasn't that helpful to us. We turned it off quite quickly and just used the aerial imagery because the GPS, when you're plotting a route on the computer, you can look at all the braids and go, well, that channel's bigger. That one's probably the faster water. But when you actually get there on the river, when you're actually in the car,
it's never the same. Right.
Yeah, you just be looking at a braid and going, well, most of the river's going that way, but this is a real narrow, fast channel, so we're going to paddle this one. So you can use the GPS if you want. And then, I guess it is very similar to a multi-day adventure race, but it's just kayaking. And one thing that we loved about it is that, we were getting 4 hours of not necessarily sleep, but 4 hours in the tent every night. You need about an hour. You need about an hour either side of landing. So you basically land at when you have to pull over between 10 and 11 p.m. Every day, and then you time your own 6 hours, and obviously you track, so they know that.
And there's a lot of daylight, right? It's a lot of daylight this time of year.
All daylight. It's all daylight. Yeah. And so it takes about an hour to basically set up camp, beer-proof the camp, clean up your boat, set up your tent, and get to bed. We would have 4 hours of in the tent. The first few nights we were getting 4 hours sleep, but surprisingly, as the race went on, certainly for me, I didn't seem to need that 4 hours sleep. But you have 4 hours in the tent nonetheless, and then about an hour to set up the boat and get going again. Break camp and set up. So we found that compared to an adventure race, that 6 hour stop every day and 4 hours of essentially sleep or downtime was quite luxurious. And it was just so nice to know when you got on the water each day. You had to get off the river between 10 and 11 and then time your 6 hours. And so we'd be back on the river at sometime between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. But to know that you are going to be off the river that day and have another rest was pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's certainly it is an adventure race. It's an adventure race on water.
How did you do in 2024?
So we had a really good race in 2024. We won it, and I guess we obviously paddled well and we managed ourselves really well on land and, had a good race. And I think for our first time, we felt like we'd done a really good job. But like anything, there's always things where you go, oh, we could have saved a little bit of time there. Or if we did it again, we could improve on this and improve on that. And while at the time we never thought we would actually go back, as time went on, we were kind of like, it would be quite good to go back and have another go.
You had the second fastest time ever, 6 days, 23 minutes. Does that sound right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. So huge time, huge result.
I think, when we look back on the race, there's just smaller things that would add up to a whole. So I think just a little bit more efficiency around camp. Like we're just probably a bit limited on some of the gear we had. The main example is that it just took us a while to boil enough water to prepare for the day. So had we had 2 cookers, we'd be able to speed that whole process up. And then there's just lots of little things that you just kind of, if you add all those up and you go, that would probably save you a bit more time here and there. But the main thing really that probably sort of consumed the time is we sort of found ourselves in a little bit of limbo, because we were obviously quite keen to challenge for the record. And we got to a point about sort of 4 days into it where we realized that, it was unlikely that we were going to be able to challenge for the record. We were just tracking too far behind where we needed to be. But we were also very confident that we were winning the race. So it wasn't like we sort of lost motivation, but we just sort of found ourselves in that kind of period where it was hard to sort of push hard when the record was out of reach, but also we probably weren't getting pressure from the teams behind. So to be honest,
that's a weird limbo to be in, right?
Yeah.
So that's because there's no one breathing down your neck, but the big goal is outside your reach.
Yeah. So and it was mainly because we got hit by really big headwinds in Alaska. And so you're just kind of getting pushed, you're just getting held back by this wind. Whereas you're kind of going, well, if we didn't have this wind, we'd be paddling quite a bit faster. But obviously you can't control the weather. And then so the last sort of day and a half, it just felt a little bit like a camping trip. I mean, we were enjoying the adventure and being out there, but we just kind of eased up a little bit. And what that also meant is that we ended up spending an extra night on the river, really close to the finish line. And that is actually added into your finish time. So, we wouldn't have needed to do much more, and we would have actually, saved literally like a minimum of 6 hours, because that's how long we had to stay on the riverbank.
Right.
A little bit more. So I guess you add those things up and go, we could go back. We could push a bit harder, and we could be slightly better prepared in a few things. And then, another year you might be a bit luckier with conditions. You might get a higher river flow, or you might get less wind, or, there may be more competitive teams. So you're actually having, those teams, you're pushing each other along, whatever it would be. So, so I guess that's why we're going back and next week and having another go.
Now, during the race, are you aware where other teams are in relation to you? Can you check there, or you have no idea where the other teams are?
You don't. No, you can't. But the first day you cross that lake, Lake Lebage it's called, and it's about 50 kilometers or 55 kilometers. And we paddled away from, we got quite a decent gap going across that lake. And when we weren't trying to, we were just doing our own thing. We're just like, let's just paddle to speed that we think we can maintain for 5 or 6 days. Mm-hmm. And just based on our kind of racing experience, we just sort of felt that if any of those teams could have matched us, they wouldn't have let us go alone off the lake.
Got it. They would have chased you down.
Okay, yeah. So we sort of felt, as long as we just keep doing what we're doing, chances are we're either extending a lead or we're holding our lead. And in the back of our minds, we didn't see any other teams, but we felt pretty confident we were out in front. And then I guess in the back of our minds, it was like, well, if someone does catch up, then we can speed up too.
So what does your training look like for that? Because it's such a singular activity. Are you just paddle training, or are you also working other parts like your cardiovascularly? Like, what is? It's a strange thing for an adventure racer to talk about getting ready for only a single activity. What are you doing to get ready?
Yeah, so I guess in New Zealand, because of the coast to coast, the big race, the multi-sport race we have here, and a lot of adventure racers have kind of come from the coast to coast or use the coast to coast as part of their build-up. We do have quite a big paddling culture, and so a lot of adventure racers in New Zealand would consider themselves paddlers, either ocean paddlers or river paddlers or different things. So, I know in other parts of the world the paddling's not as big in adventure racing, or not as big as a bigger part of people's training. But
Right.
I think here in New Zealand, it is like people will do quite a lot of paddling. And so I always have, like, paddling's always been something that I've always been passionate about. And I live on a beach. So it's the easiest thing for me to do is just grab my surf ski and go out on the sea.
Got it.
So, but to answer your question, it's predominantly paddling. And I would say that 80% of what I've been doing, this year has been paddle training and getting out. And I guess to give you just a broad, I mean, training can get a bit complicated, but I'm generally trying to paddle between sort of 100 to 200 kilometers a week.
Okay.
To give you sort of an idea. And I'm generally paddling at about 10 Ks an hour. So that's like 10 to 20 hours of paddling a week. But then I'm also running and going on hunting trips and, doing some orienteering and row gaining and the occasional bike ride sort of thing. So
you're mixing in other movement alongside the paddling to keep the body fresh.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And then we'll do some longer trips. So, my wife and I will go out, Jodie and I will go out and do, 2 or 3 day sea kayaking trip, which is kind of a camping trip, but we will still paddle. You're often paddling for, not nonstop, obviously, but you're paddling all day.
Right.
You're on the water in the morning and, not off the water until the evening, but you're stopping and having a coffee on the beach and that sort of thing. So,
how do you manage the way you sit in the boat? And the way that you have to kind of, the way you're, not that you crunched into the boat, but when you get older, obviously, we're less limber than we were. Do you do anything off the boat in terms of flexibility, mobility, core work to be able to hold that position for that long? Or is it just built into your system because you're doing it so long?
Yeah, I don't, but I think it's because I've just always been a paddler.
Okay.
So that position, I think I've just, over the years, whatever body mechanics I've got, I'm pretty comfortable sitting in that boat, in that position for a long period of time.
Okay.
So Sophie and I didn't really have any issues with that. I know some teams in the past and some of the Kiwi teams that have done the Yukon 1000 before have commented that, that was one of the things they struggled with. They were strong paddlers, but they couldn't, just being in the boat for that long was sort of new ground for them. But again, I think when you come from expedition adventure racing, you're just used to those kind of epic, crazy length stages where you just kind of mentally, I think you just go, well, yeah, it's 18 hours, but it's
paddle for an hour. It's kind of miserable, but it is what it is, right? And so psychologically, you transfer a lot of that adventure racing attitude into that.
Yeah, totally. And I think your perception changes as well. You're 10 hours into your day and you're going, oh, we've only got 8 hours to go. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Well, you're right. And people who don't do this, they shake their heads at us, right? When we say stuff like that, like it's only 120-hour race. It's only 5 days. How hard could it be?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now you are doing this in support of a foundation. So please tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm just sort of raising awareness here in New Zealand about a foundation that our family has. It was actually set up by my parents. So my mother and father set this up probably 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. I should probably know that, but quite a few decades ago. And my father's a Samoan. He's from the Pacific island of Samoa. And they set it up. And my mum was an educationalist. And they set it up just to help the Pacific Island kids in our region with education and opportunity because I think it's common all over the world, but often immigrants, especially from those kind of, in brackets, kind of third world countries, those people often end up in sort of low paid jobs and economically kind of at the bottom end of things. And it just means that often for their kids, the opportunities that they have are not as much as the other people in the community. So they set up this foundation to basically help essentially not necessarily disadvantaged kids, but just the Pacifica kids who could do with a bit of help. And it was a real successful program. But then my parents have passed away over the last kind of a few years. And so my brother and sister and I have essentially inherited the foundation. And so so basically that's what I'm raising money for. So basically the foundation is just help Pacific Island kids in our region just with opportunity, mainly around education, but also just around, whatever it is that they need some help with.
Tell us about the $10 a mile idea. What is that?
Yeah, so I wanted to sort of just raise some money because I felt like, I'm paddling all this distance. I can probably use that to inspire other people and also, raise a bit of money for the foundation at the same time. And I'm just aware that, economically, most people are sort of suffering through some tough times, especially what's happening sort of on a geopolitical level in the world right now. So I just know that, a lot of families are doing it hard, and that donating to charities at the moment is not an easy thing to do, or not something they feel they can do. But rather than sort of just say, oh, look, can you donate some money to this cause? I kind of thought, well, I'll just keep it real simple and just say, look, can you spare $10, sponsor a mile? And then people don't feel bad about just putting in $10. Because I often think when people are doing the charities, especially the online stuff, if they go onto the website and they see people have donated $500 and $200, they go, oh man, I can't donate that much, and they don't donate at all.
Right.
But I just want to make it okay. It's kind of like a $10 donation is all you need. Just sponsor a mile, $10, and we'll get there. We'll reach our target,
$10 is for the most part is achievable for a lot of people. So to your point, you're making it accessible, which, Nathan, which is kind of funny because accessibility and approachability and thoughtfulness about others is pretty much a hallmarks of your personality, right? That's what you're known for. Bringing people into the sport, and being thoughtful about how people feel. That's a very, very common thing when people talk about you. As we begin to wind up our conversation here, obviously a huge swath of the adventure racing community are newer adventure racers. What are your core pieces of advice that you like to give people who want to get into the sport? What do you encourage them to focus on in the beginning?
Yeah, I guess it's sort of human nature is you look at your own experience and think that it's not necessarily the only way, but I guess that's the model that you have faith and trust in, that's proven to you as an individual. So for me, if I look back at my adventure racing and some of the success I've had in adventure racing, what I put it down to is that I was very skilled in all the very different disciplines. So as I mentioned earlier, I came from highly competitive mountain bike racing. And so therefore, if I translate that to adventure racing, is like, I was a highly skilled mountain biker in terms of riding technical trail, strong climber, descender, good bike handling skills, et cetera, et cetera. So I had a real skill set in that. And then also I came from outdoor educating. So I was a kayak instructor, river and sea. And so I had all these skills. So when I go to an adventure race and they'll say, oh, this river section has got whitewater rapids or something, I'll go, oh, awesome, that'll be cool. I'm looking forward to that. Or they say, oh, going to be paddling on this exposed coast. There's going to be swell and waves and wind. And I'll be like, oh, great. That sounds exactly what I signed up for. And then, just being a navigator from doing lots of orienteering, confident with maps and compass. I think having all those skills is just makes the transition into actual adventure race just so much better, because there's so many things you have to kind of be sort of mildly concerned about in an adventure race. There's super endurance events. You got to look after your body, your feet, your hydration, nutrition. You got to have a sleep strategy that actually is efficient. There's all these different things. If you add in stress about being nervous about a particular thing, whether it be the rafting or the pack rafting or the mountain biking, whatever it is, the other things you can mitigate really easily. You can go and do mountain bike races. You can go and do orienteering events. You can go and upskill and paddling, all these different things. So,
right. So
my advice to people is just go and get skilled in these areas, because it's a great journey as well. I think one of the things that's most rewarding for people is when they're on that journey of self-improvement, when you set a goal and you work slowly towards it and you actually feel yourself progressing. And that's a great way to live life. Like it's so inspiring when you get up in the morning and go, I'm achieving a lot. I'm reinventing myself all the time. And each day I wake up, I'm a better person than I was the day before. And so I think that's hugely important. So my advice to people, and just locally in my own town here, when people say, "Oh, what should I be doing adventure racing?" I just say, go and do as many of these events that you can do. They're on all the time. Like in our town, there's mountain bike races on. Last night there was a Rogaine. I was helping organise the Rogaine last night, a 2-hour Rogaine. Get out and do these events because they all build up that skill. And then when you come to the adventure race, you're actually really prepared for it. I think that's really key. And then the other one is just getting a good team together. And I think getting a good team together is so much easier when you are part of that adventure community. And I can only speak for it here in New Zealand, but if you go into all those events and join those clubs and stuff, you become part of that community and you start to know and see people that you would like to be in a team with.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of people, find themselves in an adventure racing team where it's not really a highly functioning team. And that detracts from the experience and also from their performance. And so I think that's the other thing that's key. If you've got the skills, you become a valuable team member. But it also means that you're actually out there mixing in that community and living that life and breathing that kind of adventure kind of buzz. And then you will just naturally meet people. You'll be going, you go into a kayak race and afterwards you're having a coffee with a group of people and you'll spot someone and you go, oh, I think I could actually adventure race with that person. I wonder if they're interested in doing an adventure race. And then you build a strong team. And then really, if you've got a cool team that you enjoy hanging out with and you've got the skills, then boom, you're an adventure racer.
And it sounds so obvious to say, right? But good teams go faster. I know it. All right. I know it sounds so blatantly obvious to say, but when the team vibe is strong, people are working together, they feel good about each other. There's just that natural propellant to their speed that just takes off. And teams that are weaker, just they fall apart. Yeah, for sure. And I know from experience that there's a lot of races out there that, we probably shouldn't have won. Some of them are even world champs. But, we were such a tight team that we were able to really sort of dig to another level and just perform and overcome obstacles that I think most teams weren't really in a position to overcome. And a lot of people would probably be horrified to know how close we came to not winning some of those world champs, but we were able to just have confidence in our ability and trust in each other and just overcome those things and then all of a sudden we're back in the race again. That's great.
We weren't always the strongest team out there, but I think there was times when we just happened to we were just pulled together at the right time.
Nathan, I'm going to let you go. We're near the end of our time. I just want to point a few things out before you go. First off, thank you for coming on the show. I know you're 10 days out and you're busy getting ready. So thank you for that. I really appreciate you making the time for the Dark Zone. But keep in mind that that I'm having Sophie on the show after the race.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yes.
So keep that in mind. You get the bat first, right? Using a baseball term, but she's going to go second. And so after the race is over, I'll have a chance to get her experience and how she did, because she's a wonderful teammate. I know that. I'm looking forward to speaking to you and speaking to her. That should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. Well, first, I've got two things I'll say, Brian. First one is that good on you for doing so many of these Dark Zone podcasts. I mean, I think a sport, any sport or any sort of initiative needs people like you that are putting that time in, and to do 150 shows, and it's amazing. And I think that's how adventure racing will continue, is by people like yourself just investing that energy and making the effort and the time, and it's how the sport grows. And if people are enjoying the shows and they get excited about it and get motivated and go and do a bit more. So well done there. Congratulations to you. And just mentioning Sophie, I haven't told this story to many people, but one of the reasons that I've always been quite keen to go back to the Yukon, sort of deep down in my personality, is I think it was on about day 4, Sophie and I were getting ready to go on the river. We were around camp, we were getting real busy, and this sort of shows, I guess, the level of communication that we operate at. Sophie stopped me. She stood in front of me and stopped me and said, "Are you grumpy with me?" And I said to her, No, I'm not at all. I'm not. She goes, "Oh, good. I just thought you were." And then we just got on with doing things. But I think it highlights a couple of things. One is that Sophie thought I was grumpy with her, so she challenged me on it. She wanted to know why. And I wasn't. But for me, it was like, that's not the teammate I want to be. I don't want to be perceived as being grumpy. And I was like, I don't know what I was doing that morning. I certainly wasn't grumpy with her at all. I was just super busy getting ready, for the morning. But for me, that was just kind of like, okay, I almost want to have the Yukon opportunity again, so I can be a different teammate and be a teammate that never puts any doubt in anyone's mind that they're actually grumpy with their teammate, because I wasn't. And it's hard to imagine I ever would be with Sophie, but so that's good. It's a good reminder, because she's going to come on the show, and I think you're going to be asking.
That'll be my first question. How grumpy was he?
Yeah. How grumpy was the old man?
No.
She'll go, oh, he was okay. He was okay.
But what's great about that, though, is that, Nathan, if you think about it now, looking at your race resume and your Palmares and all that you've done, the fact that even for all the success that you've had, all the things you've done, the family you've raised, the races you've done, that you're still looking for self-improvement. The idea that no matter how far you've come along, there's still growth inside of who you are as a person, which is a very strong message that you're giving out to the rest of us who continue to strive to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Be the best teammate you can be, I think. And you'll have plenty of opportunities.
Well, Nathan, thank you very much. Travel safe. Have a great race. We'll follow along, and I can't wait to talk again down the road.
Go on. Yeah, thanks again, Brian.
All right, folks. Thanks for being here. Thanks to Nathan for being on the show. As always, he's a great interview and a wonderful spokesperson for adventure racing and for sporting in general. Good luck at the Yukon 1000. Nathan will be following along. And for those of you, check the show notes and donate those $10 to help Nathan's charity along. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And as always, if you keep racing, we'll keep talking.